I was on my way to the meeting about my husband's inheritance. As I got into the car, a homeless man ran up, screaming, "Ma'am, don't start that car. Your daughter-in-law." My blood ran cold. But when I arrived at the meeting, that leech fainted when she saw me. I was just about to turn the key in the ignition when I heard it. A gut-wrenching scream that cut through the morning like a knife. "Ma'am, don't start that car." My hands froze on the steering wheel. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it would break free. I turned my head and saw him, a dirty, disheveled man, his clothes torn and his greasy hair stuck to his forehead. He was running toward me with his arms outstretched, as if trying to stop a tragedy. "Your daughter-in-law was here last night." I felt the air leave my lungs. Victoria? My daughter-in-law Victoria had been near my car? In the middle of the night? The man slammed his open palms against the window, leaving dirt smudges on the glass. His eyes, sunken and bloodshot, stared at me with an urgency I couldn't ignore. It wasn't the look of a madman, it was the look of someone who had seen something terrible. "Don't start it, please." I saw what she did. I rolled the window down just a few inches, my breath catching in my throat. What did you see?" I whispered. He took a step back, trembling. She and a man in a suit opened the hood. They had a small bag. I was right there, on the corner. Nobody ever sees me, but I see everything. My fingers let go of the keys. They fell onto my lap with a metallic clink that sounded deafening in the ensuing silence. Everything started to make a horrible kind of sense. Arthur, my husband, had died just 3 weeks ago. A massive heart attack, the doctors had said. But I knew something wasn't right. Arthur was strong. He took care of himself. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. And then, suddenly, he was gone, fading away in the hospital, surrounded only by Victoria, only by her. And now this man, this stranger who lived in the city's shadows, was telling me my daughter-in-law had tampered with my car in the dead of night. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice still broken. He looked down. "Because your husband was good to me once. He gave me food when everyone else spit on me. And last night I dreamed of him. He told me to watch over you." Tears welled up in my eyes. Arthur, always so noble, always so generous. And now, even from wherever he was trying to protect me. I got out of the car, my legs shaking. The morning sun hit my face, but I felt cold, a cold that came from deep inside. I walked to the front of the car. I opened the hood with clumsy hands, and what I saw took my breath away. A wire was cut. Not frayed. Cut. Cleanly. And next to the engine, hidden among the metal parts, was a small plastic bag with a clear liquid that smelled like gasoline. My entire body began to tremble. If I had started that engine, if I had pressed the gas pedal, the whole thing would have exploded. I would have exploded. I leaned back against the car, my knees weak and my vision blurry. Victoria wanted to kill me. My own daughter-in-law, the woman who hugged my son every night, the one who smiled at me at every family dinner, the one who called me Mom Carol with that sweet fake voice, had tried to murder me. And the worst part of all, I had to go to the lawyer's office, that very morning, for the reading of Arthur's will. She would be there, smiling, waiting, believing I would never arrive. If this story has you hooked from the very first word, subscribe to this channel to keep discovering life stories that will make you feel, reflect, and never forget. I slammed the hood shut, wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and looked at the man who had just saved my life. "What's your name?" I asked him. "Everyone just calls me Slim, ma'am." "Thank you, Slim. Thank you for listening to Arthur." I took out all the cash I had in my purse. It wasn't much, but it was something. I pressed it into his hands. "I'll be back soon, and when I return, I want you to tell me everything you saw, every single detail." He nodded, clutching the bills to his chest as if they were gold. I called a cab. I wasn't going to risk my life in that car. Not yet. But as the taxi moved through the city streets, a cold, hard certainty settled in my chest. Victoria had made a mistake. She had underestimated me. She thought I was just a weak old widow, easy to eliminate. But she was wrong, because now I knew. And a woman who knows is dangerous. The lawyer's office was waiting. My daughter-in-law was waiting, and I was going to walk through that door as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was already at war. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. The lawyer's conference room smelled of old paper and burnt coffee. The beige walls, the pictures in gold frames, the mahogany desk. Everything seemed designed to give the moment a sense of solemnity. But I didn't feel solemn. I felt sick. Victoria was already there when I arrived, sitting next to my son Michael, her legs crossed and that perfect smile she always wore like a mask. She had on a fitted black dress, discreet but elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. Pearl earrings, flawless makeup. The perfect grieving daughter-in-law. Or so she wanted to appear. When she saw me walk in, her eyes widened just a fraction of a second more than normal. It was an almost imperceptible gesture. But I saw it. I saw the surprise. I saw the fear. She hadn't expected me to arrive alive. Mom. Michael stood up immediately and hugged me. His body was tense, heavy. My son had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. He had dark circles under his eyes. His beard was untrimmed. And when he pressed me against his chest, I could feel him trembling. "My love," I whispered, rubbing his back. "I'm here." Victoria stood up too. She walked toward me with measured, almost theatrical steps and embraced me with that false warmth that already turned my stomach. "Mom Carol," she said in a soft voice, "I'm so glad you made it. We were worried." Her hands on my back were cold, her perfume too sweet, and when she pulled away, our eyes met for an instant that was far too long. I didn't look away. She did. "Well, let's begin, Mr. Thompson." A man in his 60s with thick glasses and a blue tie opened a leather folder on the desk. "I know this is a difficult time for the family, but we must carry out Mr. Arthur's final wishes." At his side, the young lawyer Gregory Vance took notes silently from the corner. I sat down across from the desk, Michael to my right, Victoria to my left, so close I could hear her breathing. The lawyer began to read. At first, everything seemed normal. The main house was left in my name, the personal bank accounts too. Some land out in the country would be divided between Michael and his sister Sophia, who lived in Denver and couldn't make it. But then came the part that made me feel as if the floor had opened up beneath my feet. And according to the testamentary disposition amended on August 12th of last year, Mr. Thompson paused and looked at me over his glasses. Yes, the properties located downtown, the warehouse on the industrial outskirts, and the condo in the Gold Coast are left in the name of Mrs. Victoria Anderson. Silence. A silence so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. "What?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. The lawyer cleared his throat, uncomfortable. It was an amendment made by Mr. Arthur 3 months before his passing. Signed before a notary. The documentation is right here. He pushed some papers toward me. My hands were shaking so much I could hardly hold them. There it was, Arthur's signature, his name, the date. But something wasn't right. Arthur would never have hidden something like this from me. He would never have left properties worth millions of dollars to Victoria without so much as mentioning it. We were a team. We always were. Mom, Dad mentioned it to me. He said Victoria had been a huge support for him in the last few months, that he wanted to secure our future. I turned to my son, my heart tearing. "And you knew? You knew and you didn't tell me anything?" Michael looked down. "I didn't want to worry you. I thought Dad would tell you when the time was right." Victoria placed her hand on Michael's, a possessive gesture, marking her territory. "Carol, I know this is a surprise," she said with that controlled, almost compassionate voice. "But Arthur trusted me. He knew I would take care of Michael. And of you too, of course." Her words were poison wrapped in velvet. I stood up from the chair. My legs felt as heavy as stones. "I need some air." I walked out of the room before anyone could stop me. The hallway of the law office was narrow and cold. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. 3 properties, millions of dollars in Victoria's name, and she had tried to kill me that very morning. Why? What else did she want? What else was there left to take from me? The answer came clear and brutal. She wanted everything. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Victoria. She came out of the room with that unbreakable smile, as if nothing in the world could touch her. "Carol, I understand you're surprised, but this is what Arthur wanted. We should respect his wishes, don't you think?" I stared at her. Every muscle in my body was tense. "Were you near my car last night?" Her smile faltered. "Just for a second, but it was enough." "What? No, why would I? Someone saw you." Her eyes hardened. The mask was beginning to crack. "I don't know what you're talking about, Carol. Maybe the stress is getting to you. You should get some rest." She turned and went back into the room, leaving me alone in that freezing hallway. But something had changed in me. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had clarity. Victoria had planned all of this, manipulated Arthur, forged documents, tried to kill me. And now, in front of a lawyer, she was collecting her prize. But she made one mistake. She left me alive. And I was going to use every second I had left to unmask her betrayal, to get back what was mine, and to make her pay for what she did to Arthur. I went back into the room. I sat down. I signed what I had to sign. But inside, the war had already begun, and this time I was going to fight to the end. The days that followed were a silent nightmare. I went back to my house, the house that Arthur and I built together 30 years ago, and everything felt different. The walls no longer protected me. The furniture, the paintings, the framed photos. Everything seemed to whisper the same question to me. What really happened? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bag of gasoline hidden in the engine. I saw Victoria's smile. I heard her sweet, venomous voice. And then the rumors started. It was at the farmer's market where I first heard it. I had gone early to buy vegetables, trying to maintain some semblance of normality in my shattered life. Maria, who sells peppers and tomatoes at the corner stall, greeted me with that uncomfortable smile people give when they don't know what to say. "Mrs. Anderson, so good to see you. How are you?" "Getting by, Maria. One day at a time." She nodded, but her gaze avoided mine. She nervously arranged the tomatoes on the tray. "Listen, is it true that—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't meddle." Something in my chest tightened. "What's true, Maria?" She lowered her voice, leaning in slightly. "They're saying that Mr. Arthur didn't die of a heart attack, that something strange happened at the hospital." I froze. The bag of vegetables nearly slipped from my hands. "Who's saying that?" "Well, people talk, Mrs. Anderson. They say your daughter-in-law went to the hospital every day, alone, and that the doctors could never really explain what happened. Such a healthy man, gone just like that." She made a gesture with her hand, as if something had vanished into thin air. I didn't answer her. I paid, took my things, and walked out of there, with my heart pounding in my ears. But it didn't end there. At the pharmacy, the cashier looked at me with pity. At the bakery, 2 women stopped talking as soon as I walked in. And on the corner of my street, I saw my neighbor from number 12, Mrs. Henderson, chatting with another woman. When they saw me pass, they lowered their voices and turned away. But I managed to hear. They say the daughter-in-law already got 3 properties. Poor Mrs. Anderson, and she treated her like her own daughter. Every word was a stab. It wasn't just that Victoria had betrayed me. It was that the whole neighborhood knew. Or at least, they suspected. And I had no proof. Only suspicions. Only a huge void where my trust used to be. That night, alone in the house, I sat at Arthur's desk. It was an old, dark wood piece of furniture with deep drawers and a desk lamp he used to review contracts. I opened the first drawer. Papers, old invoices, utility bills. The second drawer. Notebooks, pens, a picture of us in Florida, smiling under the Sunday, my eyes filled with tears. "Arthur, what did they do to you?" I whispered. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the third drawer, at the very back, was a manila folder. It was hidden under some old architectural plans. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were bank statements, but not the ones I knew. It was an account I had never seen, in Arthur's name and Victoria's. I felt the world stop. Bank transactions, transfers. $2 million withdrawn in August, another million in September, and then, just a week before Arthur died, another transfer of $3 million. $8 million in total, 6 moved before his death and 2 after. Without my knowledge, I looked for the dates, compared them with my calendar. All those transfers were made on days when I was away, visiting my sister in Ohio, on a spiritual retreat in Sedona. Victoria had waited for the perfect moment. And Arthur? Did Arthur know? Or had she deceived him too? My hands were shaking so much that the papers crinkled between my fingers. Then the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but I answered. Mrs. Carol Anderson? Yes. Who is this? This is Dr. Evans. I worked at St. Raphael Hospital when your husband was admitted. My breath hitched. What do you need, doctor? There was a long, too long pause. I need to speak with you, in person. There's something that should have been investigated at the time, but nobody wanted to listen to me. My heart was beating so hard, I could feel the pulse in my temples. What are you talking about? About your husband's final hours, about what we found in his blood, and about who was with him when it all happened. I closed my eyes. The tears flowed freely, hot, angry. Tell me where and when. Tomorrow, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in the coffee shop across from the hospital. Come alone. He hung up. I stayed there, sitting at Arthur's desk, with the bank statements scattered before me and the phone still in my hand. The rumors were true. Something horrible had happened, and everyone knew it, but no one dared to say it out loud. Except me, because I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Tomorrow I would learn the truth, the whole truth. And if Victoria had killed my husband, if she had poisoned his last days of life to steal everything from me, then she would have to pay. It didn't matter how long it took. It didn't matter how much it hurt. Arthur deserved justice, and I was going to get it for him. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering, trying to find the exact moment when everything started to fall apart. The moment Victoria stopped being the loving daughter-in-law and became this. And then I saw it clearly. It was 4 years ago. Michael came home one Sunday with her on his arm, smiling as if she'd won the lottery. She was 28 then. He was 32. Mom, Dad, I want you to meet someone very special. Victoria walked into our living room with confident, almost rehearsed steps. She wore a white dress with small flowers, her hair loose in perfect waves over her shoulders, low heels, natural makeup, all calculated to seem innocent. So nice to meet you, Mrs. Anderson. She extended her hand with a warm smile. Michael has told me so much about you. Arthur was charmed from the first moment. What a polite young woman, he told me later after they had left. And you can tell she loves our son. I didn't say anything, but something in my stomach was uneasy. Maybe it was the way her eyes scanned the house when she walked in, not with curiosity, but with evaluation, as if she were measuring every piece of furniture, every painting, every inch of our life. Maybe it was the way she touched the porcelain vase by the entrance and asked, in that sweet voice, "Is this an antique? It must be worth a fortune." Or maybe it was just a mother's instinct, that uncomfortable tingle that tells you, this person is not what she seems. But Michael was in love, and when a son is in love, mothers become invisible. They married 6 months later. A big, expensive wedding, which Arthur and I paid for almost entirely. Victoria said her family couldn't contribute much because they came from a humble background. We, of course, understood. Or so we thought. After the wedding, things changed, little by little. So slowly you almost don't notice. Like when a plant wilts, it doesn't die all at once. It fades leaf by leaf. First, it was the family dinners. Victoria always had an excuse to arrive late or leave early. I have work. I have a headache. Michael and I have plans. Then she started to have opinions about everything. Mother-in-law, don't you think this living room needs a renovation? It looks a bit dated. Arthur, I've seen some incredible properties downtown. You should invest before the prices go up. Michael told me you have land out in the country. Wouldn't it be better to sell it and put that money to work? She always talked about money, investments, properties. And Arthur, who was a noble but trusting man, started to listen to her. She's smart, Carol, he would tell me. She has a vision for business. I tried to warn him, more than once. "Arthur, that girl only talks about money. Don't you find that strange?" He would laugh. "You're exaggerating, my love. She just wants to help." But I wasn't exaggerating. I remember the day I found a credit card in the pocket of Arthur's jacket. A card I didn't recognize. I checked it. It was in his name, but Victoria was the additional cardholder. Expenses, hundreds of thousands of dollars on clothes, restaurants, trips, all paid for by my husband. When I confronted him, Arthur became uncomfortable. I lent her the card a couple of times. For emergencies. Emergencies? I showed him the statement. Is a $5,000 purse an emergency? Carol, please. She's our son's wife. What do you want me to do? Tell her no? That was the first time we fought over her. And it wasn't the last. Victoria started visiting Arthur at his office. Just to ask for advice, Michael would say. But I knew there was something more. I saw how my husband came home quieter, more distant each day. One day I found him in his study, his head in his hands. "What's wrong, my love?" "Nothing. I'm just tired." "Arthur, talk to me." He looked up. His eyes were weary, sad. I signed some papers that maybe I shouldn't have signed. My heart stopped. "What papers?" Victoria asked me to help her with an investment. She said it was urgent, that Michael was worried about the future. I just wanted to help. How much? $2 million. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. "Arthur, are you crazy?" I know it was stupid, but she said she would pay it back, that it was only temporary. Of course, she never paid back a dime, and when I tried to talk to Michael, he defended her. "Mom, you're being unfair. Victoria isn't like that. You don't know her like I do. Michael, open your eyes. That woman is using your father. That's enough." His voice exploded in the living room. "You've always distrusted her. From the very first day. You know what? Victoria was right. She said you would never accept me being happy." Those words broke me. Because they weren't my son's words. They were her words, coming out of his mouth. Victoria had poisoned him. Not with substances, with ideas, with lies. With that terrible ability, some people have to make you doubt your own reality. And while I was losing my son, Arthur was getting sick. It started with fatigue, then dizziness, then stomach pains that the doctors couldn't explain. "It's stress," they said. "Get more rest." But I knew it wasn't stress. Because every time Victoria visited him, Arthur got worse. Until one day, at the hospital, while I was in Ohio visiting my sick sister, Arthur had a massive heart attack. And the only person with him at that moment was Victoria. Now, sitting on my bed, with the cold sheets and the silent house, I understood everything. Victoria hadn't entered this family for love. She had entered to destroy us. And worst of all, she had succeeded. But there was still one thing she couldn't take from me. My will to fight. Tomorrow I would meet with Dr. Evans. Tomorrow I would know the truth about what happened in that hospital. And when I had the answers, Victoria would discover that she underestimated the wrong woman, because a mother can forgive many things, but she will never, ever forgive the one who took the love of her life. And I had just decided that forgiveness was no longer an option. The next morning, I woke up with an icy certainty in my chest. I needed proof. I needed something concrete, tangible, that couldn't be ignored or dismissed as a widow's paranoia. Something that even Michael couldn't deny. And that something was in my garage. I went downstairs, still in my robe, my hair in a messy braid. The sun was just beginning to seep through the windows, tinging everything a pale orange. The house smelled of old coffee and silence. I made myself a cup of tea that I didn't drink. My hands were shaking too much. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I called Frank. He had been Arthur's trusted mechanic for over 20 years. A man in his late 60s, with grease-stained hands and an honesty that was beyond question. If anyone could tell me the truth about what was in my car, it was him. "Mrs. Anderson?" His voice came through the line. "How are you? I'm so sorry about Mr. Arthur." "Thank you, Frank. I need you to come to my house. It's urgent." "Is something wrong with the car?" "I don't know. That's what I need you to tell me." There was a pause. "I'm on my way." He arrived half an hour later in his beat-up pickup truck that smelled of burnt oil and cigarettes. He brought his toolbox and that serious expression he wore when things were important. "Show me the car, ma'am." I led him to the garage. My gray sedan was parked in the same spot where I'd left it after Slim's warning. I hadn't touched it since. I hadn't dared. Frank knelt in front of the hood, opened it carefully, and for several minutes said nothing. He just checked, touched, moved wires. His brow furrowed deeper and deeper. "Good Lord," he muttered. My stomach clenched. "What is it?" He pulled a small flashlight from his pocket and shone it toward the engine. Then he turned to me with an expression I had never seen on him before. Pure fear. "Mrs. Anderson, did you start this car after you parked it here?" "No. Someone warned me not to. Thank God." He wiped his hands on a dirty rag and beckoned me over. "Come, look at this." I approached, though every step was an effort. I didn't want to see, but I had to. Frank pointed to a wire cut cleanly, almost surgically. "This is the wire that connects the ignition system to the fuel pump. It's cut, not frayed. Cut with something sharp. A utility knife, probably." I felt my throat close up. "And what does that mean?" "It means someone wanted the car not to start right away. They wanted you to insist, to try it several times." "Why?" He pulled something out with a pair of pliers. It was a plastic bag, maybe 3 by 2 inches, with a volatile mixture placed on the exhaust manifold. The ignition cable was severed with a blade, a setup consistent with a secondary ignition and an instant explosion. My breathing stopped. What would have happened if I had insisted on starting it? Frank looked me straight in the eye. The heat would have melted the bag. The liquid would have dripped onto the hot engine, and with the sparks from the ignition, he paused. "It would have exploded, Mrs. Anderson. You would have exploded." My legs gave out. I had to lean against the garage wall to keep from falling. The world was spinning. "Are you sure?" "Completely. This isn't an accident. This isn't vandalism by some dumb kid. This is—" He swallowed hard. "Attempted murder." The words hung in the air, heavy as stones. Attempted murder. Someone had wanted to kill me. Someone had planned for me to die in a fire inside my own car, in my own garage, with no witnesses, no escape. And that someone was Victoria. "Frank." My voice came out as a broken whisper. "I need you to document all of this. Photos, videos, whatever is necessary. I was just thinking that." He took out his phone. "I'm going to record everything, and then we should call the police." "No, not yet." He looked at me, confused. "Mrs. Anderson, this is serious. If someone tried to, I know. But I need more proof. I need this to be irrefutable, because the person who did this," my voice trembled, "is my daughter-in-law, and if I'm going to accuse her, I need there to be no doubt. None." Frank closed the hood carefully, as if the car were a bomb that could still go off. "Your daughter-in-law, Victoria." I nodded. "A homeless man saw her. He saw her and another man, here, in the middle of the night, tampering with the car." Frank shook his head, incredulous. "My God, but why? What does she gain by everything?" Tears began to roll down my cheeks. "She gains everything. The inheritance, the properties, total control over my son. If I disappear, she gets it all." Frank cursed under his breath. He put away his tools with abrupt, angry movements. "This isn't going to stand, Mrs. Anderson. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." "Nothing is going to happen to me," I said, wiping away my tears with the back of my hand. "Because now I know what she's capable of, and I'm not giving her another chance." Frank finished recording everything. He sent the videos to my phone. Every cut wire, every angle of the melted bag, every inch of evidence. "What are you going to do now?" he asked before he left. "I'm going to meet with someone, a doctor who worked with Arthur at the hospital. And after that, I'm going to build a case so solid that not even the best lawyer in the world can defend her." Frank placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Arthur would be proud of you." Those words both broke me and built me back up. When he left, I stayed in the garage, looking at the car that had almost become my coffin, and something inside me changed forever. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore. It was rage, a cold, calculated, relentless rage. Victoria had tried to erase me from this world. She had tried to turn me into ashes to take everything Arthur and I had built. But she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She thought a 68-year-old widow would be easy to eliminate. She thought no one would listen to me. She thought she could get away with it. But she was about to find out that the most dangerous woman in the world is one who has nothing left to lose. And I had just lost everything. I saved the videos. Later, Raphael would present them to the police. Now I had only one mission: to get justice. And I wouldn't stop until I saw her pay for every tear, every lie, every betrayal. The game had just begun, and this time I was setting the rules. I had 3 hours before my meeting with Dr. Evans. 3 hours I decided to use to find Slim. He was the only person who had seen Victoria that night, the only witness to her crime, and I needed his full testimony, every detail, every word he could remember, because if I was going to confront her, I needed weapons, and witnesses are the best weapons. I left my house with the sun already high in the sky. I carried my purse slung over my shoulder, cash in my wallet, and a determination that burned inside me like fire. I first looked for him on the corner where I had seen him that morning. He wasn't there. I asked a street vendor selling hot dogs, "Have you seen a thin man in dirty clothes who's usually around here?" The vendor looked at me suspiciously. "What are you looking for him for?" "He saved my life. I want to thank him." His expression softened. "Sometimes I see him by the market or in the park, near the benches in the back. A few of them sleep there." I thanked him and walked toward the market. My legs weren't as strong as they used to be, but the urgency gave me strength. I passed the fruit stands, the meat counters, the bakeries, the smell of fresh bread mixed with that of flowers and fish, and then I saw him. He was sitting on the ground, leaning against the back wall of the market with a plastic bag beside him. His head was down, his eyes closed. For a moment I thought he was sleeping, but as I got closer, he looked up. His eyes recognized me instantly. "Ma'am," he mumbled, trying to get up. "No, stay there." I crouched in front of him, ignoring the pain in my knees. "I came looking for you." He blinked, confused. "Me?" "Yes. I need you to tell me everything you saw that night. Everything, without leaving anything out." Slim swallowed hard. His hands were trembling. "I already told you, ma'am. I saw your daughter-in-law. And a man. But I need more. What time exactly? What did the man look like? What else did they do?" He looked down nervously. "I don't want any trouble." I took out my wallet and placed 5 $100 bills in his hand. His eyes widened like saucers. "It's not about trouble. It's about justice. That money is yours. And there will be more if you help me stop her." He stared at the bills as if he couldn't believe they were real. Then he quickly tucked them into his pocket and took a deep breath. "All right. I'll tell you everything. Go on." It was around 2 in the morning. I was there, on the corner of your street. I always sleep there because there are fewer cops to run me off. I was half asleep when I heard a car pull up near your house. I peeked out. It was a black car, fancy. 2 people got out, a woman and a man. What did the man look like? Tall, wore a dark suit, short hair. I couldn't see his face well because he was wearing a cap, but he walked like someone used to being in charge. You know what I mean? With his back straight, no fear. I nodded, absorbing every word. And the woman? I recognized her. "I've seen her at your house before. It's your daughter-in-law." She was wearing black pants and a hooded jacket, but I got a good look at her when she passed under the streetlight. It was her, for sure. "What did they do?" "They went over to your car." The man opened the hood. "I don't know how. Maybe he had tools." "They were there for about 10 minutes. She was holding a light with her phone. He was sticking his hands in the engine. They were talking low, but I could hear a little." "What were they saying?" Slim closed his eyes, concentrating. "She was saying, 'Is it done?' And he answered, 'Yeah, but you have to make sure she tries to start it a few times. If not, it won't work.' And she said, 'She will. She's always stubborn.' And then they laughed. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Stubborn. She knew me. She knew that if my car didn't start on the first try, I would insist. Once, twice, 3 times, until it exploded. Anything else? My voice was barely a thread. Yeah, before they left, she gave him something, an envelope, and the man said, "This makes us even." Then they got in the car and drove off. Did you see the license plate? No, ma'am, it was too dark. But the car was a BMW, one of those new ones, black, with chrome rims. I opened my purse and took out my phone. Could you recognize the man if you saw him again? Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get a good look at his face. What if I showed you pictures? Could be. I started to think. Who was this man? An accomplice? A lover? Someone Victoria paid to do her dirty work? Slim, I need you to do something for me. Something very important. He looked at me with those tired but attentive eyes. Tell me. I want you to come with me to a safe place. I'm going to pay for a hotel room for you for a few days, and I need you to write down everything you just told me with all the details you can remember. Can you do that? I don't write too good, ma'am. It doesn't matter. I'll help you. But I need your testimony on record, because the time will come when you'll have to repeat this in front of other people. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. In front of the police? Maybe. Or in front of a judge. Slim turned pale. Ma'am, I can't get mixed up in things like that. I have a record, petty theft, nothing serious. But if they see me in a courtroom, nothing is going to happen to you. I put a hand on his shoulder. I promise I will protect you. But I need you to help me, because that woman didn't just try to kill me, she also killed my husband, and if we don't stop her, she'll do it again. His eyes filled with something like compassion. Your husband was good to me. He treated me like a person, not like trash. Then help me get justice for him. There was a long silence. The noise of the market continued around us. Voices, laughter, the thud of knives against wooden boards. But in that small corner, it was just him and me, connected by a terrible truth. Finally, Slim nodded. All right, I'll do it. I helped him to his feet. He was lighter than I thought, just skin and bones. I took him to a modest but clean hotel near downtown. I paid for a week. I bought him new clothes, soap, food, and that afternoon, sitting in the small room that smelled of detergent, we wrote his testimony together. Every word, every detail, every second of that cursed night. When we finished, I took a picture of him with my phone, holding the paper in his hands, his signature at the bottom. Keep this safe, I told him. This piece of paper could change everything. He folded it carefully and tucked it under the mattress. Ma'am, do you really think this will do any good? I looked him straight in the eye. Slim, you are the only person in the world who saw what she did. You're invisible to society, I know. But right now, you are the most important person in my life, because you have the truth. And the truth always, always wins in the end. He smiled for the first time, a broken but real smile. Thank you for believing me, ma'am. Thank you for having the courage to speak. I left the hotel with a lighter heart. I had a witness. I had evidence from the car. And in an hour, I would have the answers about what happened at the hospital. Victoria had built her empire on lies, but I was about to tear it down, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. I arrived at the coffee shop across from the hospital 15 minutes before 3. I sat at a table by the window, where I could see the entrance to St. Raphael. That 5-story white building, which once seemed like a place of hope, now looked like a mausoleum. Arthur had died in there. In there, Victoria had let him die. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink. I just held it in my hands, feeling the warmth of the disposable cup, trying to calm the trembling that wouldn't go away. At 3 o'clock sharp, a man walked into the coffee shop. Late 50s, salt and pepper hair, a doctor's coat under a gray jacket, round glasses, a serious look. He scanned the room. When he saw me, he nodded. He approached my table and extended his hand. Mrs. Anderson, I'm Dr. Evans. Thank you for coming. He sat across from me, ordered a black coffee, and for a moment said nothing. He just looked at me, sizing me up, as if trying to decide if I was strong enough to hear what he had to say. Finally, he spoke. I shouldn't be here. What I'm about to tell you could cost me my job, maybe even my license. But I can't stay silent any longer. My heart beat faster. Tell me the truth, please. He took a thin folder out of his bag. He placed it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were printed sheets, medical reports, charts. Your husband was admitted to the hospital on September 18th. He was complaining of dizziness, abdominal pain, nausea. We thought it was acute gastritis. We admitted him for hydration and tests. I nodded. I knew all of that. For the first 2 days, his condition was stable. Uncomfortable, but stable. But then, he paused. He started to decline. Rapidly. Too rapidly. What happened? His vital signs began to fail. Tachycardia, irregular blood pressure, mental confusion. And the strangest thing, his blood tests showed elevated potassium levels, much, much higher than normal. And what does that mean? Severe hyperkalemia can cause a sudden cardiac arrest, but the strange thing is, he had no medical reason to have those levels. He wasn't diabetic. He didn't have kidney problems. He wasn't taking any medication that would justify it. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Are you saying that? I'm saying that someone could have administered potassium to him externally, in high doses, without anyone noticing. The coffee shop seemed to spin around me. Who? How? I don't know, but I know who had unrestricted access to his room, who was with him in his final hours, who was there when no one else could be. Victoria, he nodded slowly. Your daughter-in-law. Yes, I covered my mouth with my hands. Tears streamed out uncontrollably. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Arthur hadn't died of a natural heart attack. He had been murdered, and I wasn't there to protect him. Why didn't you say anything? My voice came out broken, desperate. Why didn't you investigate? Dr. Evans looked down, ashamed. I tried. I spoke to the hospital director. I showed him the test results. I told him something wasn't right, but he told me we couldn't make accusations without conclusive evidence, that an autopsy required the family's consent, and your daughter-in-law, she refused. The lawyer, Vance, advised that cremation would be the most dignified and sanitary option. Michael signed, trusting his word. What? She said she didn't want to desecrate his body, that it was a lack of respect, that Arthur would have wanted to rest in peace. And your son supported her. I closed my eyes. Michael, my own son, had blocked the investigation without knowing it. So they cremated him, I whispered. Yes. And with that, any chance of proving what happened was lost. I fell silent. The noise of the coffee shop felt distant, unreal. Voices, clinking cups, the hiss of the espresso machines. It all felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Doctor, do you believe she did it? He looked me straight in the eye. Yes, I believe your daughter-in-law poisoned your husband. I can't prove it. But in 25 years of my career, I've seen a lot of deaths. And this one was not natural. The tears rolled freely down my cheeks. How did she do it? It could have been with potassium supplements. They're easy to get, sold over the counter. In normal doses, they're harmless. But in high doses, mixed in food or drink, they're lethal. And the worst part is, they leave very little trace, especially if the body is cremated. I felt empty, as if someone had ripped my soul out. He trusted her, I said in a trembling voice. Arthur trusted everyone. It was his greatest virtue and his downfall. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Anderson. Can I keep these documents? He pushed the folder toward me. They're copies. Use them as you need to. If this goes to trial, I will testify. I don't care what happens to me. Your husband deserves justice. I squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. When Dr. Evans left, I sat in that coffee shop for almost an hour. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry anymore. I was just there, staring out the window, watching people come and go from the hospital, worried families, patients walking slowly, doctors in a hurry, and me, a 68-year-old widow, carrying the weight of an unbearable truth. Arthur had been murdered. My husband, the love of my life, the father of my children, had been slowly poisoned by the woman we trusted, the woman we called family. And worst of all, my son still didn't believe me. Michael had called me paranoid. He had told me to stop making things up. He had said Victoria was innocent. How do you tell a son that his wife is a murderer? How do you destroy his world to save the truth? I got up from the table. I paid. I walked out onto the street. The cold afternoon air hit my face, but I didn't feel it. I walked aimlessly for a while. I passed a church. I hesitated. I hadn't been inside one in years, but something pushed me in. The interior was almost empty. Just an elderly woman praying in the front pew and the smell of incense floating in the air. I sat in a bench at the back and looked toward the altar. "Arthur," I whispered, "I couldn't protect you. Forgive me." The tears returned, silent, bitter. "But I swear to you, on everything I hold dear, that she will pay. I swear it. Even if it costs me everything I have left, she will pay." I left the church with swollen eyes, but with something new in my chest. Purpose. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore, it was determination. Victoria had destroyed my family. She had killed my husband. She had tried to kill me. But she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She thought an older woman, alone, powerless, would be easy to eliminate, but she was wrong. Because pain can break you. Or it can turn you into something stronger than you ever imagined, and I had just decided that my pain was not going to destroy me. It was going to be my weapon. And with that weapon, I was going to get justice. Even if it was the last thing I ever did. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake at the dining room table, surrounded by papers, photos, bank documents. Everything spread out like the pieces of a macabre puzzle. And me, at the center, trying to piece together the full picture of the betrayal. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed professional help, someone who knew how to move in the shadows, someone who could find what I couldn't see. And I knew the perfect person, Rafael Cedeno. He had been Arthur's partner more than 15 years ago in the early construction projects. A brilliant, meticulous man with that rare ability to see what others ignore. But after a legal problem that nearly ruined him, Rafael left the business world and dedicated himself to something else. Private investigation. Arthur always said that Rafael had the nose of a bloodhound, and I needed exactly that. I called him at 7 in the morning. "Carol?" His voice sounded surprised. "It's been a long time. I'm so sorry about Arthur. He was a great man. Thank you, Rafael. I need to see you. It's urgent." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No, but I'm going to be. Can you meet me today?" Name the place. 2 hours later, we were sitting in a discreet restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. Rafael arrived with a worn leather briefcase and that penetrating gaze that had always intimidated me a little. 52 years old, short hair with graying temples, a 3-day beard, a dark suit without a tie. He sat across from me and got straight to the point. "What do you need?" I told him everything, every word, every detail. Slim's scream, the cut wire, the bag of gasoline, the amended will, the neighborhood rumors, the meeting with Dr. Evans, the poisoning, the bank transfers. Rafael didn't interrupt me once. He just listened, taking notes in a small notebook with a black pen. His eyes never left my face. When I finished, he closed the notebook and exhaled slowly. "This is serious, Carol. Very serious. I know. If what you're saying is true, your daughter-in-law isn't just a thief, she's a murderer. That's why I need proof. Proof that a judge can't ignore. Proof that will force my son to open his eyes." Rafael leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "How much money do you have available?" "Whatever it takes. Because this isn't going to be cheap. We'll need to trace bank accounts, get phone records, investigate her past, maybe hire surveillance. And everything has to be done with absolute discretion. If she finds out you're investigating her, I know. She could disappear, or worse, try to kill me again." "Exactly." I took out a check I had prepared that morning. $50,000. I placed it on the table. "This is just the down payment." Rafael looked at the check, then he looked at me. "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we open this box, there's no turning back. What we find could change your life forever. My life has already changed, Rafael. I've already lost my husband. I've already lost my son's trust. I've already almost lost my own life. I have nothing left to lose, except my dignity, and I'm not giving that away." He smiled faintly, a sad but respectful smile. "Arthur was right about you. He always said you were the stronger of the two." He took the check and put it away. "All right, I'll take the case. But we're going to do this my way. No emotions, just facts, just solid evidence." "Agreed?" "Agreed." Over the next 10 days, Raphael worked in silence. I went on with my normal life, or at least, pretending to. I went to the market. I visited my sister. I tended to the garden. I smiled when necessary. But inside, every second was an agonizing wait. Raphael called me every couple of days to update me. First call. "I found something interesting. Victoria's real name isn't Victoria Anderson. She changed it 8 years ago. Her birth name was Victoria Miller. And she has a record." "What kind of record?" "Minor fraud. 10 years ago, she was accused of swindling an elderly man in Arizona. The case was dropped because the man died before the trial. My blood ran cold. He died? Heart attack. At least, that's what the death certificate says. But the coincidences are starting to pile up. Don't you think?" Second call. "The transfers you found aren't the only ones. There are more, many more. It matches what you already found. $8 million in total, 6 before his death and 2 after. All made within the last year. All to accounts that Victoria controlled. But the interesting thing is that some of those transfers were made from his personal account after he was hospitalized." "That's impossible. He was unconscious." "Exactly, which means someone had access to his banking passwords. And there's only one person who could have had them." Third call. "I hired surveillance. Victoria has met 3 times in the last week with a man. Same guy your witness described. Tall, dark suit, black BMW. I got photos. I'm sending them to you." Minutes later, the photos arrived on my phone, and what I saw left me breathless. The man in the suit was Gregory Vance, a corporate lawyer specializing in inheritances and wills, and the same lawyer who was present the day the will was read at the office. It all started to click into place. Gregory had helped Victoria forge the documents, change the will, move the money, and he was probably the one who cut the wire in my car that night. She wasn't just a conspirator. It was a whole network. Fourth call. The most important one. "Carol, I need you to come to my office. Now, I found something you have to see." I arrived in less than half an hour. Raphael was waiting for me with his computer on. On the screen were scanned documents. "Look at this." He enlarged the image. "This is the amended will, the one read at the office." "Yes, I've seen it." "Now look at this." He opened another document. "This is Arthur's signature on old contracts. Notice the slant of the A, the shape of the O, the spacing between the letters. I see it." "Now look at the signature on the amended will." The comparison was stark. It wasn't the same signature. It was good. Very good. Almost perfect. But it wasn't identical. "It's a fake," I whispered. "Correct. Arthur never signed that will. Someone did it for him, and that someone is very professional. Probably Gregory. Lawyers know how to copy signatures. It's part of their forensic training." I felt my legs tremble. "This is enough, right? With this, we can go to the police." Raphael shook his head. "It's a good start, but it's not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need a confession, or at least something that ties them directly to the crime. And how do we get that?" He looked at me with that intensity that gave me chills. "By setting a trap?" My heart beat faster. "What kind of trap?" "One they can't refuse. One where they feel safe, where they let their guard down, and where every word they say is recorded." I smiled for the first time in days. "Tell me what I need to do." And so began the final phase of my revenge. I was no longer just a widow searching for answers. I was a woman armed with evidence, with witnesses, with a plan. And Victoria was about to discover that the biggest mistake you can make in life is to underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. Because when a woman decides to fight for her truth, no lie is strong enough to stop her. and I was just getting started. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Raphael designed it with surgical precision, every detail, every move, every word I would have to say. You have to make her feel like she's won, he explained in his office. That you're no longer a threat, that you've given up. Only then will she let her guard down. And how do I do that? You call her, invite her to dinner, tell her you want to make peace, that you're tired of fighting, that you want to sign off on the division of assets peacefully and move on with your life. The mere thought of faking kindness with her made my stomach turn. I don't know if I can. Raphael put a hand on my shoulder. I know it's hard, but it's the only way. If you confront her directly, she'll run. Or worse, she'll hire better lawyers and bury everything. We need her to feel safe, to talk. And when she talks, we'll have her. I took a deep breath. And the cameras? I'm going to install 3. One in the living room, hidden in the wall clock. Another in the dining room, in the decorative plant. And one more in the kitchen, just in case. High-definition audio. High-definition video. Everything will go directly to an encrypted server. Even if they destroy the cameras, the recording will be safe. What if she doesn't say anything incriminating? She will. People like Victoria can't resist bragging, especially when they think they've won. You just have to provoke her subtly, ask casual questions, and let her ego do the rest. He gave me a list of key phrases I should mention during dinner. Phrases like, "Arthur always trusted you." I never understood why he changed so much in his last few months. Sometimes I wonder what really happened at the hospital. The car? What luck I didn't start it that day. Each one designed to plant doubt, to provoke a reaction, to make it impossible for Victoria not to defend herself or, better yet, justify herself. I practiced in front of the mirror for 2 days. A kind smile, a tired but conciliatory voice, gestures of defeat. I had to be perfect, because if she suspected anything, it would all fall apart. Finally, on a Thursday afternoon, I called her. My hand was shaking when I dialed her number. Carol. Her voice sounded surprised. Victoria. Hello. How are you? Fine. And you? I wasn't expecting your call. I know. I need to talk to you. And to Michael? But especially with you. There was a cautious pause. What's this about? I want you to come to my house for dinner. This Saturday. I need to make peace. I'm tired of all this pain. Of the fighting. Of the distrust. Arthur wouldn't have wanted this. I could hear the gears turning in her head on the other end of the line. Are you sure? Completely. I want to sign the pending papers. Close this chapter and move on. We all deserve peace, don't you think? Her voice softened. She thought she had won. That sounds perfect, Carol. Michael will be so happy to hear this. He's been so worried about you. I know. I'm worried about him too. About all of us. I'll expect you at 8. I'll make something special. We'll be there. I hung up and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Raphael, who had been listening from the other room, came in with a smile. Perfect. She fell for it completely. Now we just need everything to go well on Saturday. It will go well. Trust the process. On Friday, Raphael arrived early to install the cameras. He worked for 3 hours, adjusting angles, testing audio, making sure everything was invisible but functional. When he finished, he showed me what it looked like from his laptop. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen, all in a split-screen view. Sharp image, clear audio. Remember, he said before he left, stay calm, don't accuse her of anything, just let her talk. The truth always comes out when people feel comfortable. Saturday arrived like a silent storm. I spent the day cooking. I made a roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Michael's favorite dessert, apple pie. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth we used for special occasions, candles, fresh flowers. Everything had to look authentic. At 8 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the door with a smile that pained my soul. Michael came in first. He looked tired, but hopeful. He hugged me tightly. Thanks for this, Mom. Thank you for coming, my love. Victoria entered behind him, elegant, as always. A fitted black dress, heels, perfect hair. That smile I now recognized as pure falsehood. Carol, you look lovely, and it smells delicious. Thank you, dear. Come in, have a seat. We sat at the table. I served the food. We talked about trivial things at first: the weather, the traffic, the news. Michael seemed relaxed, happy to see us together without fighting. Victoria, on the other hand, was watching me, still cautious, still evaluating. Then, as I poured more wine, I dropped the first key phrase. You know, Victoria, despite everything, I know Arthur trusted you so much. She smiled. He was a wonderful man, very generous, he was. Sometimes too much. I paused. I never understood why he changed so much in his last few months. He became so distant. Victoria took a sip of wine thoughtfully. I think he was tired. The work, the stress. You know how business is, maybe. But it was strange, especially when he started getting sick. The doctors never found a clear explanation. I looked her directly in the eye. She held my gaze without blinking. Sometimes life is like that, Carol. Unfair, inexplicable. I suppose so. I wiped my mouth with my napkin. I'm just glad you were with him at the hospital. I couldn't have borne it if he had died alone. Someone had to be there. Her voice had an almost proud tone. Someone who knew how to take good care of him. Michael interrupted, uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we shouldn't talk about this now. You're right, my love. I'm sorry. I smiled. It's just that sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things had been different. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes glinting. Different how? I don't know. If I had been there, if I had insisted that more doctors look at him. Yes. I paused dramatically. If I had started the car that day, the silence that followed was electric. Victoria blinked. Just once. But it was enough. What car? She asked, but her voice sounded forced. My car, a few weeks ago. It had a strange mechanical problem. The mechanic said it was almost as if someone had sabotaged it. I laughed softly. But that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened on the wine glass. Ridiculous, she finally repeated, but her smile no longer reached her eyes. And I knew, in that moment, that I had her. That every word that came out of her mouth from now on would be recorded. And that the trap had just been sprung. All that was left was to wait for her to hang herself with her own tongue. Because the truth always finds a way out, especially when you push it with the right questions. The dinner continued for another hour. I kept up my role as the tired, conciliatory widow. Victoria, on the other hand, was starting to show cracks. Small ones, almost imperceptible, but they were there. She touched her neck nervously. She drank wine faster than usual. She glanced toward the door now and then as if she wanted to escape. But most importantly, she talked too much. She started to brag, to justify herself, to explain things no one had asked her. Arthur asked me to handle his accounts because he trusted me, she said while cutting a piece of pie. He said I had a better head for numbers than Michael. No offense, honey. Michael smiled uncomfortably. No offense taken, Mom, but it's true. I was always terrible with finances. I know, sweetie. I looked at Victoria, and it's admirable that Arthur trusted you so much. Though I must confess, I was surprised he moved so much money without telling me anything. She set her fork down on the plate. They were investments, opportunities that couldn't wait. He understood that. Of course, although... I paused, as if remembering something. The bank called me a few days ago. They said there were transfers made after Arthur was in the hospital, unconscious. Strange, isn't it? Victoria went rigid. They must be mistaken. Banks make mistakes all the time. Maybe, I smiled sweetly. Or maybe someone had his passwords. The silence fell like an anvil. Michael looked between us, confused, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. Victoria, however, was staring at me. Her eyes were no longer sweet. They were hard, calculating. Carol, where are you going with all this? Nowhere, dear. I'm just trying to understand how things worked. To close this chapter in peace, like we said. She didn't answer. She just picked up her wine glass and drained it in one gulp. Then, I decided to deliver the final blow. You know, I met someone a few weeks ago, a homeless man. He told me a very interesting story about a woman and a man in a black suit who were near my car one night. The glass nearly slipped from her hand. What? Yes. What a coincidence, right? Just the night before I discovered the mechanical problem. Victoria stood up abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. Michael, we're leaving. But Michael had also stood up, looking at me with a mix of confusion and anger. Mom, what's going on? What are you talking about? Ask your wife, I said in a calm but firm voice. This is ridiculous. Victoria grabbed her purse. Your mother is paranoid, Michael. I already told you. She needs professional help. Paranoid? I stood up slowly, keeping my cool. You know what's funny, Victoria? A paranoid person wouldn't have this. I took out my phone and placed the photos Raphael had sent me on the table. Victoria with Gregory Vance. In restaurants, in parking lots, in his car. Michael's eyes widened. What? What is this? Your wife with the lawyer who amended your father's will. The same lawyer who was present at the reading. The same man who, according to my witness, helped her sabotage my car. Victoria stepped back, pale. That proves nothing. Gregory is a colleague, a friend who helped you steal $8 million, a friend who forged Arthur's signature, a friend who tried to kill me. You're lying. Do you want me to call the doctor who treated your father-in-law? The one who found abnormal levels of potassium in his blood? The one who suspected he was poisoned? Michael took a step back, as if he'd been punched. No, it can't be. Victoria turned to him, fake tears instantly welling up. Honey, don't believe her. She's making it all up. She's jealous. She's always hated me. But Michael was looking at her differently now, as if seeing her for the first time. For a moment her voice trembled. I just wanted to be respected. I was always the guest, never the owner. Then her voice hardened again. Your father was an idiot. Is it true? His voice cracked. Did you poison my father? No, of course not. This is insane. Answer me. His shout echoed through the house. Victoria opened her mouth. Then she closed it. Her eyes darted from me to Michael, looking for an escape that didn't exist. And then she did the only thing she could. She smiled, a cold, calculating smile, devoid of any pretense of innocence. Your father was an idiot, she said in a sharp voice. A foolish old man who would sign anything to be made to feel important. It was so easy to manipulate him, it was laughable. Michael recoiled as if he'd been stabbed. Oh my God. And you know what? Victoria continued, now unrestrained. I only regret one thing. Not finishing the job with her, too. She pointed at me with contempt. But don't worry, there's still time. She pulled something from her purse, a small, silver, sharp knife. Michael screamed, Victoria, no! But she had already lunged at me. I didn't have time to think, only to react. I moved to one side. The knife grazed my arm, tearing the sleeve of my blouse. And then, the front door burst open. Raphael ran in, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. Get on the ground! Drop the weapon! One of them shouted as they aimed at Victoria. Raphael, without losing his composure, showed the officers that the cameras were broadcasting everything in real time to the secure server. Victoria froze. The knife fell from her hands, her face shifting from hatred to panic in a second. The police subdued her, handcuffed her. As they dragged her toward the door, she screamed, This is a setup. She provoked me. They set me up. Raphael came over to me. Are you okay? I nodded, still shaking. You recorded everything, right? Every word, every movement. It's on the server. Irrefutable. Michael was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands, sobbing like a child. I knelt beside him and hugged him. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. His voice was a broken whisper. Mom, forgive me. I didn't believe you. I thought you were... Shh. It's over. It's over now. The police took Victoria away. Her screams faded into the distance. Raphael approached with a serious expression. They're going to arrest Gregory Vance, too. With the recordings and the bank records, they're both going to spend a lot of years in prison. And the fake will? It will be invalidated. Everything will go back to how it should have been from the start. The properties, the money, it all comes back to you and your children. I closed my eyes. The relief hit me like a wave. It wasn't joy I felt. It was justice. Arthur could rest in peace, and I, finally, could breathe. The nightmare was over, but I knew the wounds would take a long time to heal. Because getting your life back is one thing. Earning back your son's trust is another. And that night, holding Michael on the floor of my dining room, I knew the real work was just beginning. Not the work of revenge, but of rebuilding. And that, I would later discover, was the hardest work of all. Several weeks passed since that night of the trap. Time was no longer measured in days, but in hearings and depositions. The following months were a hurricane of lawyers, statements, hearings, and paperwork. Victoria was formally charged with fraud, forgery, attempted murder, and, although they couldn't fully prove it due to the body's cremation, conspiracy in the death of Arthur. Gregory Vance, the accomplice lawyer, was arrested at his office 2 days later. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the bank transfers, and the testimony of Slim, the homeless man who saw everything, sealed the guilt of both. They had no defense. The trial lasted 4 months. I attended every hearing, sitting in the same pew, wearing the same dark clothes, staring at Victoria every time she entered the courtroom in handcuffs. She never met my gaze. Her lawyer tried everything. He argued temporary insanity, then psychological manipulation, then that I had provoked her, that it was all self-defense. But the recordings didn't lie. The cameras had no bias, and the jury, 12 people who didn't know her, saw the same thing I had seen from the beginning: a woman without scruples, capable of anything for money. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was packed. Family, journalists, curious onlookers drawn by the scandal. Michael sat beside me, pale, his hands clasped on his knees. He had lost so much weight in those months. He looked like a different person. When the judge asked the jury for their verdict, the silence was absolute. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." "How do you find the defendant, Victoria Miller, on the charges of fraud, forgery, and attempted homicide?" "Guilty." "On all counts." I heard Michael let out a shaky breath. I felt nothing, just a strange emptiness, as if something inside me had been extinguished and couldn't be relit. The judge banged the gavel. "The sentence will be 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving at least 12 years. 18 years. Victoria was 32. She would get out at 50 if she got out at all. I watched her stand up, handcuffed, escorted by 2 officers. For a moment, she turned her head toward me. Our eyes met. There was no rage in her gaze, no remorse, just emptiness. And then they led her out of the room. Gregory Vance received 15 years, his career destroyed, his reputation in ruins. After the sentencing, Raphael was waiting for me in the courthouse hallway. "Justice was served," he said. I nodded, but I couldn't smile. "Why don't I feel better?" He put a hand on my shoulder. "Because justice doesn't erase the pain, Carol. It only closes the circle. The rest you have to do yourself." He was right. 2 weeks later, the fake will was officially nullified. The 3 properties Victoria had stolen were returned to my name. The $8 million she had moved were traced and recovered. Everything Arthur had built during his life came back to where it always should have been, with his rightful family. But the money no longer mattered to me. What mattered was something else. One Sunday afternoon, Michael came to visit. He brought flowers, white lilies, my favorite. We sat on the patio, under the soft afternoon sun, with the sound of birds in the background. For a long time, we didn't speak. Finally, he broke the silence. "Mom, I can never ask for your forgiveness enough." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." His voice broke. "I failed you. I failed Dad. I let that woman destroy everything. And the worst part is I didn't believe you. I called you paranoid. I turned my back on you when you needed me most. I placed my hand on his. You were in love, and love is blind. I know that better than anyone. It's not an excuse. No, but it's an explanation." I looked into his eyes. "Son, Victoria didn't just fool you. She fooled all of us. She was very good at what she did. Too good. And you just wanted to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. Tears streamed down his cheeks. How can you forgive me? Because you're my son, and because I know your father would have forgiven you too. He loved you, and wherever he is, I know he just wants to see you happy. Michael broke down. He cried like he hadn't cried in years. And I held him, like when he was a child, like when he would fall and come running for comfort in my arms. Because that never changes. A son will always be your son, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many mistakes he makes. A mother's love has no conditions. That same month, I made a decision. I sold 2 of the properties Victoria had tried to steal. With that money, I created a trust fund for my grandson, Michael's son, who was barely 6 years old. An innocent child who had lost his grandfather and would now grow up without a mother. I wanted to make sure he was protected, that he had a future, that Victoria's lies wouldn't ruin his life too. The rest of the money, I donated. Part went to St. Raphael Hospital on the condition that they improve their security protocols for vulnerable patients. Another part went to a homeless shelter, because Slim had saved my life. And if he, someone invisible to society, could be my guardian angel, then there were thousands like him who deserved a chance. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because Arthur would have done the same. And because I finally understood something it had taken me a lifetime to learn. True wealth isn't in what you own. It's in what you do with what you have. It's in how you treat people who can give you nothing in return. It's in sleeping peacefully knowing you did the right thing, even when no one was watching. One evening, while organizing Arthur's study, I found a letter. It was hidden inside one of his favorite books, a letter he never sent, dated 2 weeks before he died. It read, "Carol, if you're reading this, it's because something happened to me. I need you to know I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. I let someone get too far into my life, into our finances, into our family. And now I'm scared. Scared of what might happen. If something happens to me, please don't trust anyone. Investigate, fight. Because I know you are stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you, and I'm sorry." The letter fell from my hands. Arthur knew. On some level, he knew Victoria was dangerous, and he had tried to warn me. But he didn't make it in time. I sat in his chair, surrounded by his books, by his scent that still lingered in the leather of the desk, and I cried, not from sadness, but from closure, because I could finally tell him, "It's done, my love. I did what I had to do. I defended you. I defended us. Now you can rest." And I felt, for the first time since his death, that he truly was at rest, that justice, though late, though incomplete, had arrived, and that I, a 68-year-old woman who had been underestimated, betrayed, almost murdered, had won. Not with rage, not with vengeance, but with dignity. And that, I discovered, was the most powerful victory of all. 6 months after the trial, one December morning, I woke up with a need I couldn't ignore. I had to see him. Slim. The man who, without knowing it, had changed the course of everything. The man who, with a single desperate cry, had saved my life and unleashed justice. I hadn't seen him in a while. After the trial, I had gotten him a job at a small cleaning company. I had paid for a modest room for him in a boarding house. I had given him money for clothes, food, medicine, but I had never really said thank you, not in the way he deserved. I searched for him for 2 days. He wasn't at his job. He wasn't in his room. No one had seen him. And then, one cold afternoon, I found him. In the same place where it all began, the corner of my street. Sitting against the wall, in the same tattered clothes as always, despite everything I had given him. I approached slowly. He looked up and recognized me. "Mrs. Anderson." "Slim, I've been looking for you." He smiled sadly. "I'm sorry, it's just, I couldn't stay in the room. I couldn't keep the job. I don't fit in there. The street is my home. It always has been." I sat down next to him. I ignored the stares of the people passing by. I ignored the cold of the concrete. I ignored everything except him. I didn't come to scold you. I came to thank you. He shook his head. You have nothing to thank me for. I have everything to thank you for. I took an envelope from my purse. Without you, I would be dead. Without your scream, without your courage, Victoria would have gotten away with it. That's why I want to give you this. I handed him the envelope. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check, $100,000. His eyes filled with tears. Ma'am, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. And you will. Because you earned it. Do whatever you want with that money. Travel, rest, or donate it if you want. But take it, because it's yours, because you saved a life, and that is priceless. He clutched the check to his chest, sobbing silently. It wasn't just me, he said through his tears. It was your husband. He spoke to me that night. I froze. What? I dreamed of him, clear as day. I was sleeping on that corner, and suddenly I saw him, standing in front of me, in a gray suit, smiling. He said to me, "Take care of my wife. She's in danger. Don't let her start the car." And when I woke up, you were there, getting into the car. And I screamed. I don't know why. I just screamed. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks. "Arthur," I whispered. "He loved you very much, ma'am. I could feel it in the dream, so much." I looked up at the sky. The gray winter clouds moved slowly. The air smelled of impending rain. "Thank you, Arthur," I said softly. "Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for sending me an angel when I needed one most." Slim wiped his tears with the dirty sleeve of his jacket. "Ma'am, do you believe in that stuff? In dreams? In the dead watching over us?" I looked into his eyes. I didn't used to. I thought everything was chance, coincidences. But now I know there's something more. Something we can't see, but it's there, watching over us, guiding us. Arthur sent me to you. And you saved me. That's not a coincidence. That's love. Love that transcends death. We sat there for a while longer, in silence, just two people connected by an impossible story, by a scream that changed everything. Finally, I stood up. "Take care of yourself, Slim, and if you ever need anything at all, find me. I'll always be here for you. Same to you, ma'am, even though I don't have much to give. You already gave me everything. You gave me my life." I walked back to my house, my heart lighter than it had been in months. When I arrived, I sat on the patio, the same place where Arthur and I used to have coffee on Sundays, where we planned trips we never took, where we dreamed of growing old together. And although he was no longer physically there, I felt his presence. In the wind that rustled the leaves of the bougainvillea tree, in the song of the birds he loved so much, in the warmth of the sun peeking through the clouds, I closed my eyes and spoke. "You can rest now, my love. Everything is okay now. Michael is healing. Our grandson is protected. Victoria paid for what she did. And I am at peace. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for not leaving me alone. Thank you for loving me so much that you found a way to save me even from where you are. I love you. I will always love you until we meet again." I opened my eyes, and just at that moment, a white butterfly landed on the edge of the table. It stayed there, motionless, as if looking at me. And then it flew away, high, toward the sky. I smiled, because I knew it was him, saying goodbye, telling me he could finally rest. And I, a 68-year-old woman who had lost her husband, who had been betrayed by her family, who had been seconds from death, I had survived. Not just physically, but with my dignity intact, with my self-love recovered, with my truth defended. And although the road had been painful, although the scars still ached, I knew something with absolute certainty. It was worth it, because the truth is always worth it, because justice, however slow, always arrives, and because a woman who decides to defend what is hers, what is right, what is just, that woman is unstoppable. And I had just discovered that I had always been that woman. I just needed everything to be taken from me to realize it. My love is finally gone. This story touched my heart in a way I never imagined. because it reminded me that no matter how old you are, no matter how many times you've been underestimated, no matter how much pain you carry, you always, always have the power to rise up, to fight for your truth, to reclaim your dignity. What about you? Have you ever had to face a family betrayal? Have you ever had to defend yourself when no one believed you? Leave me a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me where you're watching from, because every story matters. Every voice counts. And together, we form a community of people who don't give up. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it left you thinking, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to continue sharing stories of real lives that remind you that you are never, ever alone. Because true wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you don't allow to be taken from you. And the most valuable thing you have is your dignity. Never, ever sell it. See you in the next story. With love, your storyteller who never gives up.